Hello everyone, welcome back to Simple Science Daily, where we explore the science behind the headlines and dig deeper into the tough questions shaping our world. Today we focus on a controversial decision made by Zimbabwe to cull 200 elephants in an effort to feed communities ravaged by one of the most severe droughts the country has faced in decades. This move is being seen as both a necessary response to an environmental crisis and a topic of ethical debate. Zimbabwe is facing a crisis. El Nino-induced drought has wiped out crops across southern Africa, affecting a staggering 68 million people. In Zimbabwe alone, nearly 6 million citizens are expected to need food aid during the upcoming lean season. In response, the Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Authority (ZimParks) has announced its plan to cull 200 elephants. The meat from these elephants will be distributed to the communities that are struggling the most with food shortages. This is the first time Zimbabwe has culled elephants since 1988, and the operation will focus on regions like Hwange, Mbire, Cholotsho, and Chiredzi. The decision mirrors a similar one taken by neighboring Namibia, which recently culled 83 elephants to combat the same drought-related challenges. Zimbabwe is home to over 84,000 elephants, but its parks only have the capacity to sustain around 55,000. This overpopulation, combined with the drought, has put immense pressure on both the elephants and the local communities. As sources become scarcer, human-wildlife conflicts are rising, with dangerous encounters between people and elephants becoming more frequent. Last year alone, 50 people were killed by elephants. The culling, according to Zimbabwean officials, is also aimed at reducing this pressure on national parks and easing human-wildlife conflict. While the number of elephants being culled may seem significant, officials like Tinashe Farao, the ZimParks spokesperson, argue that in the grand scheme of things, it's only a small portion of the total population. He described the 200 elephants to be culled as a drop in the ocean. Zimbabwe's relationship with its elephants is complicated. The country is recognized for its conservation efforts, which have helped its elephant population grow over the years. However, with such growth comes increased challenges, and Zimbabwe has been lobbying to reopen international trade in ivory and live elephants. Currently, it has an ivory stockpile worth $600 million accumulated from natural deaths and legal culling. The country hopes that by reopening trade, they can use these funds for conservation efforts and better management of elephant populations. But the international community remains divided on the issue. Organizations like the United Nations Convention on International Trade and Endangered Species, or CITES, have placed restrictions on ivory trade due to concerns about poaching and declining elephant populations in other parts of Africa. Critics of the cull argue that it could have unintended consequences. Some conservationists claim that even culling a small number of elephants could lead to more aggressive behavior among the remaining herds. Traumatized elephants could pose an even greater threat to nearby human populations, leading to an escalation in human-wildlife conflict. They also argue that alternatives like contraception or better management strategies should be explored to control the population without resorting to killing the animals. However, supporters of the culling argue that it's necessary for both human survival and ecosystem balance. Chris Brown, a conservationist and CEO of the Namibian Chamber of Environment, explains that overpopulated elephant herds can devastate ecosystems, consuming vegetation faster than it can regenerate, leaving less food for other species. According to Brown, if elephant populations continue to grow unchecked, they could do irreparable damage to the delicate habitats they share with other animals. Another layer to this complex issue is the financial and logistical challenges faced by Zimbabwe and its neighboring countries. Droughts like the current one force governments to make difficult decisions. Namibia, for example, is currently facing its worst drought in 100 years, and its government has culled not just elephants but other wildlife such as buffalo and zebra in an effort to save resources and provide meat to starving communities. Still, many conservationists, animal rights activists, and even tourism advocates have raised concerns about the long-term impact of culling on both wildlife populations and Zimbabwe's tourism industry. Tourists flock to the country for its iconic wildlife, especially elephants, and reducing their numbers could affect the industry's sustainability. It's a delicate balance, one that pits the immediate needs of drought-stricken communities against the long-term goals of wildlife conservation and economic stability. While Zimbabwe and Namibia both argue that these culling efforts are a form of population control to preserve the environment, critics suggest that the countries should look for alternative methods that don't involve killing elephants. International organizations are also stepping in. Groups like the World Food Programme are working to provide more sustainable food solutions for drought-impacted regions, but with such a severe crisis, these efforts may not be enough. For now, Zimbabwe is moving ahead with its culling plans, but the global conversation on the ethics and effectiveness of such measures will likely continue for some time. In the end, the decision to cull these elephants raises important questions about how we balance conservation with human needs, especially in regions where climate change is causing resource scarcity and increasing the likelihood of conflict between people and wildlife. Is culling a necessary tool for survival, or should we be focusing on long-term solutions that benefit both humans and animals? Only time will tell if this approach will help Zimbabwe and its communities in the short term. But the debate over how best to manage Africa's elephant populations is far from over. And this is all for today. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Simple Science Daily. Remember to subscribe for more in-depth analysis of the most pressing scientific and environmental issues of our time. Reminding you to stay curious, stay informed, and as always, keep learning. Until next time, goodbye and thank you.